Hi, I'm Kelly Monaco. I'm currently unemployed, so I created this channel to earn some extra income. I'll be updating you with the latest news about the drama General Hospital.
General Hospital spoilers. There are moments in General Hospital when danger does not begin with a gunshot, a scream, or a public betrayal. Sometimes it begins in silence, in a hospital room filled with machines, dim lights, and the heavy feeling that something unfinished is still hanging in the air. That is exactly what makes this situation around Cullum and Jocelyn feel so unsettling. On the surface, it may have looked like one more reckless choice made in a moment of panic, but underneath that choice is the beginning of something far more serious. Jocelyn stepped into a space where she never should have gone, and even though she left without carrying out the worst possible outcome, the damage may already have been done. The real threat now is not what she did in that room, but what Cullum may remember after seeing her standing there beside his bed. What makes this story so gripping is that Jocelyn is not dealing with a simple enemy. Cullum is not the kind of man who forgets strange details or shrugs off behavior that does not make sense. Even while lying in intensive care, weak and drifting in and out of consciousness, he may have seen enough to understand that Jocelyn's visit was not innocent. That brief moment when his eyes opened and fixed on her carries enormous weight. It was not placed there for nothing. It suggests awareness, recognition, and perhaps the beginning of suspicion. If that memory returns clearly, then Jocelyn may have handed Cullum the very clue he needs to start pulling at the thread she has worked so hard to hide. That is where the emotional danger deepens for Jocelyn. She has spent so much time trying to appear harmless, young, and far removed from the darker forces surrounding her that she may have started believing she could control how other people see her. But Cullum has never fully accepted the version of Jocelyn that others might. From the moment he encountered her during the storm on Spoon Island, something about her did not sit right with him. He sensed that she was more observant, more calculating, and far less naive than she wanted the world to believe. Seeing her in his room, hovering over him while he was defenseless, could confirm every doubt he ever had. Once a man like Cullum begins to connect those pieces, he is not likely to stop. That is what gives this story its cold, creeping sense of fear. Jocelyn may think the moment passed because she was interrupted. She may even tell herself that since nothing final happened, she escaped the worst of it. But in a story like this, being interrupted does not erase the danger. In some ways, it makes everything more unstable. If she had never entered that room, Cullum might have remained focused on his physical recovery. Instead, he now has a mystery to solve. Why was she there? What did she want? Who sent her? And why would a young woman like Jocelyn take such a terrible risk unless she was hiding something far more important than anyone realizes? The pressure on Jocelyn becomes even more painful when considering that she is not acting in a vacuum. Her choices are tied to larger secrets, larger power games, and larger forces that have already started to close in around her. Brennan may have done everything he could to protect her, bury records, and limit what Cullum knows, but protection like that has limits. Secrets can be contained only for so long before one wrong move gives the truth a place to breathe. Jocelyn entering that room may become exactly that mistake. Brennan can hide paperwork, redirect suspicion, and create distance, but he cannot erase a living memory if Cullum's mind begins to sharpen again. And if Cullum remembers enough, Brennan's efforts may suddenly look fragile. What makes Cullum especially dangerous is not only his rank or his authority, but his personality. He is the kind of man who does not need proof to become threatening. Suspicion alone is enough to put him in motion. Once he begins to feel that something is wrong, he will likely test people, pressure them, corner them, and watch closely for cracks. That creates a terrifying situation for Jocelyn because she is still young, still emotional, and still vulnerable to fear in ways someone like Cullum will know how to exploit. He may not come at her directly at first, In fact, the greater danger is that he may become patient. Men like him often do more damage when they stay quiet, gather information, and wait for the right moment to strike. This is also why the hospital setting matters so much. Intensive care is supposed to be a place of healing, but here it becomes the birthplace of a new threat. The stillness of that room, the helplessness of a man recovering from surgery, and the false sense that he could do nothing in that moment all combine to create a chilling reversal. Cullum may have looked powerless, but if memory returns, he becomes dangerous again in a different way. Physical weakness does not matter much when a man has knowledge. In fact, being underestimated may work to his advantage. People may speak too freely around him. They may assume he knows less than he does. Jocelyn herself may make the fatal mistake of relaxing before the true battle even begins. For an older audience especially, what makes this story resonate is that it is not only about suspense. It is also about the painful cost of one impulsive decision. Jocelyn is at an age where fear and loyalty can push someone into actions they are not truly prepared to live with. That makes her deeply sympathetic, even as her actions become more dangerous. She is not a hardened villain. She is a young woman stepping deeper into shadows than she can fully control. That gives the story emotional weight. Viewers can understand the panic, the desperation, and the misguided belief that if she acts quickly enough, she can protect herself or protect others. But General Hospital's always understood that desperate choices rarely stay buried. They come back, they spread, they wound more people than expected. There is also something haunting in the idea that Cullum's memory of Jocelyn may become sharper precisely because it was tied to a moment of vulnerability. People often remember what feels wrong more clearly than what feels ordinary. A strange face in a hospital room, a sense of danger while half conscious, the image of someone who should not be there standing too close to the bed. Those are the kinds of impressions that can return in fragments and then suddenly lock into place. If that happens, Jocelyn will not just be facing a suspicious man. She will be facing a man who feels violated, hunted, and personally challenged. That could make him far more aggressive than before. The threat becomes even darker when one considers that Cullum may not immediately expose what he remembers. He may choose instead to keep that information to himself, using it as leverage while he studies Jocelyn more closely. That would be far worse than an open accusation. Open conflict gives a person a chance to defend themselves. Hidden suspicion gives them no such protection. Jocelyn could find herself being watched, tested, and manipulated without fully knowing how much Cullum has pieced together. Every glance, every unexpected question, every shift in his tone could become a quiet act of intimidation. That kind of danger wears a person down slowly. It creates paranoia, guilt, and the fear that one wrong reaction will bring everything crashing down. In many ways, the most tragic part of this story is that Jocelyn may have thought she was taking control, when in fact she may have surrendered it. Walking into that room may have felt like action. It may have felt bold, necessary, even brave in a distorted way. But now the balance may shift toward Cullum. If he remembers her, then he gains the upper hand, not because he is stronger physically, but because he understands that she is frightened enough to cross lines. That knowledge alone could tell him a great deal. It tells him she is connected to something deeper. It tells him she is not just a bystander, and it tells him she may be easier to pressure than she wants anyone to believe. This storyline works so well because it turns a brief hospital moment into the beginning of a much larger emotional storm. It is not about loud drama for its own sake. It is about the slow tightening of consequences. Jocelyn may soon realize that the real danger was never the interrupted act itself. The real danger was being seen. In a world where secrets are currency and suspicion can become a weapon overnight, being remembered by the wrong man can be just as deadly as being caught. If Cullum holds on to that image of Jocelyn in intensive care, then what happened in that quiet room may lead not to relief, but to a deadly chain of events that neither one of them can stop. Cullum's memory of seeing Jocelyn in the intensive care room could become the first real clue that something much bigger is hidden beneath her innocent image. If that moment stays with him, he may start connecting details that once seemed unimportant and slowly realize Jocelyn is not just a frightened young woman caught in the wrong place. For a man as sharp and relentless as Cullum, one strange memory is enough to begin tearing apart an entire lie. If Cullum starts digging deeper, the real danger is that he may uncover Jocelyn's WSB connection and Brennan's efforts to protect her. That would make this far more than a private suspicion. It would become a personal insult to Cullum, especially if he feels Brennan has manipulated him and helped Jocelyn move around unnoticed. Once that happens, the conflict could turn deadly very quickly, because Cullum is not the kind of enemy who lets betrayal go unanswered. At the same time, Jocelyn is not someone who will quietly accept whatever fate Cullum tries to force on her. She may be young, but she has already shown that fear can make her bold, unpredictable, and willing to take dangerous risks. If Cullum corners her, he may discover that Jocelyn can fight back with quick instincts and last-minute moves of her own, making their clash feel even more intense and personal. That is what makes this storyline so exciting going forward. Cullum may be gaining power through memory and suspicion, but Jocelyn may still have enough courage and nerve to turn the situation around when it matters most. General Hospital seems to be building toward a tense game of pressure, secrets, and survival, with both characters pushing each other closer to the edge.
I'll be back at the General Hospital soon. We'll see each other again soon. Thank you for supporting my channel. Goodbye and see you again.